Welcome. I got a 1,000-pound Azure order. Well, maybe just over 1,000 pounds. Am I crazy? Am I a food hoarder? Do I know what I'm doing? Am I going off the deep end? I am gonna answer all of that and more as to why I made a huge Azure purchase and what I got, how we're using it. Join me. Welcome to Modern Homestead Alaska. We are Aaron and Jessica Milnes. We are building a modern homestead outside of Wasilla, Alaska, with the help of 3 of our children. Our second son, Caleb, our daughter, Cody Ann, and the youngest of our family, Wyatt, along with our 3 dogs, Tipper and Daisy, and the newest addition, Roberto. Hopefully many of you stuck around. I know I started out a little bit of what could appear as condescending towards myself, and I thought we would just get that out of the way right off the bat. Just over a year ago, my husband and I started diligently working on building our food storage and our food preps for our modern homestead here in Alaska. And we have made some very, very big purchases over the last year. What we do or came from was we had a large food storage where we were at after 2020 had happened, and Aaron and I were unable to get groceries, and that is a true story. Unable to get food. Made me feel panicked as a wife and a mom that I wasn't doing my job and I wasn't supplying for my family, and I just didn't see it coming, and I know there are so many in the same boat as me. However, moving up from Arizona to Alaska, things are so different here when it comes to food, and the longer I make these videos and the more I discover, the more I realize they are so much more different and difficult differently, however you want to say that, between the two. And then we brought nothing. We brought one trailer that had all of our tools to build the house, our memories and keepsakes and everything, our dishes and you name it, all of our stuff, all 5 of us that came, plus all the keepsakes of our oldest child who is off in college and that sort of stuff. All of our belongings had to fit in one trailer. That doesn't leave space for a huge food storage or food stock. But today's Azure order is slightly different, and I'm actually at the end, we're gonna break open some of these bags and get to using them, and I'm gonna show you how. I know many of you come to these Azure shopping hauls, you just wanna see what I got and move on with your day, but I have to explain a little bit. Today's a little bit of explanation. Please just bear with me as we get through the explanation. The reason we went the direction we went is very multiple layers. Number one, as we do our research and we see food shortages that are coming, things that didn't grow last year, the storage that's available is now been depleted or depleting and so on. And then we live very far, like we're the end of the line as far as if there's things needed in the lower 48, it gets shipped there first. Alaska is the end of the line. We have a smaller population, we're farther to send things, and we kind of get pushed a little bit to the wayside. Learning that moving here has made the way that we think about food storage just even more different than it was in the very beginning. So what did we get and why? We got human grade, okay, that's important. There's animal grade on a lot of these things, and you can get it from Azure, and then there's human grade on a lot of these things that we got from Azure. And what we bought was this entire pallet of bulk grains. So there's peas and stuff in here, so those would be legumes, those sort of things. But all of this has the potential to feed either my family, the human beings. It has the potential of feeding our dogs. They're very, very high on our list of making sure that they are well taken care of. And then it also has the ability to feed our livestock. So I'm gonna walk you through kind of what we got and then how we're gonna use each thing now. So in the past, and they still have them, I checked today, I had gotten these 5-gallon Mylar bags from Azure. So any of the grains that aren't immediately going into play as far as people and animal food, they will be put in Mylar bags and then stored either on shelving or plastic buckets. However you store your stuff, you would do this the same way. So the first thing is we got 2 50-pound bags of, this is the rolled oats. This is fine for animal food, but the truth of the matter is my kids opened the very last bucket of rolled oats because we do go through so many of them with oatmeal and breakfast and no-bake cookies and you name it. We go through so many of them. These are really just for our family. These are gonna go into our long-term food storage. Let me get those out of the way. Both the navy beans, I got 25 pounds of these. Those of you that have been around, we have been canning a bunch of beans, and my bean storage is about 50% of where I like to keep it. And so I do have to kind of build back what I've been depleting and what we've been eating. So 25-pound bag of navy beans and a 25-pound bag of Great Northern beans. These are very, very similar. The beans, one is bigger, one is a little bit smaller, but they're both a white bean and they're both absolutely delicious, and we use them with a lot of tomato-based bean dishes, ham hocks, the whole 9 yards, but we have a bunch of these canned up, so I need some dry in order to use them however I want. All right, here we have a 50-pound bag. I think there's 2 of them of hard red wheat. I will find them. Hard red wheat, we do keep probably not more than a 5-gallon bucket of it for our family for grinding and using. However, hard red wheat, they say, is one of the wheats that if you get it and you needed to, you could just throw it out in a field and grow it, which is great if you have some sort of livestock, those sort of things. It's really good for energy as far as the chickens go. So the hard red wheat that we got, some will get stored in the Mylar bags, but the rest of it is actually going to become part of the chicken food mix that I'll show you at the end of the video. I have a bunch of polenta and I had ran out of cornmeal. I like cornmeal, frying fish, those sorts of things, and I had none in storage, none in my pantry, none anywhere, and I was gonna have to go get some from the store. I was placing this order, it popped up as in part of the list, and I went, oh crud, I needed some of that. This is honestly, it looks like a 50-pound bag, but it's a 25-pound bag of cornmeal, and it's just a coarse cornmeal, very similar to polenta, not identical. And I did try and grind some of the whole corn in my grinder, which is totally not recommended, and my grinder would not grind it. So I had to order some up. I'll get this immediately. We're out upstairs, so I've got to get this open, packaged up, and start using it right away. What did I tell you? They have come to visit. I have this door open because it's so dark in the basement, and the chickens are here to just peck around. They can hear the chicks, I think. Aren't they funny? What are you guys doing? I seriously cannot tell you how much I love that. They are so funny. I love my chickens. I love my chickens. So I just thought it was hilarious that I'm down here recording this and they all came to visit. tell us off. Tipper's down here, our little pit bull, and she is just staring at them and they are yelling at her, and it is hysterical. Moving on. Okay, these two that are on top, yellow split peas and green split peas. Now, these are a family favorite. We use them when I make my green split pea soup. I do, so say there's 2 cups of green peas and then 2 cups, one will be like yellow split peas and one will be lentils, so that I'm getting the different vitamins and nutrients in the soup and not making just green split peas. They're high in protein. That's the purpose of putting them in the chicken's food. And then I'll show you in a little bit, we'll get it all put together, and then we're also gonna soak these grains as well. So green and yellow split peas for the chickens. Like most all of you, I cannot afford to stock everything all at one time. And so this is my second 50-pound bag of sea salt. This I just am getting prepared ahead of time. Salt is good for your animals. However, we are going to need it for preserving methods come this fall. And like I had said in previous videos, I had opened my long-term storage of salt, the salt that we had stored up. I needed to replace that. And then I went ahead and kind of looked back at how much salt I had ordered over the last probably 1.5 years from Azure, and realized when it's like canning and pickling and all of that with the meats that we smoke and preserve, and with the canning and preserving methods that way, we go through a lot of salt. And I realized just get a 50-pound bag now, add it to the giant bulk list, and then have it so that when that season comes, I'm not scrambling and waiting a month for an ingredient to show up. I've already got it ahead of time, and that's super important to me, especially where we're at, to know that I have the things before I need the things, because you can't always just run out and buy them here. All right, on the 50-pound bags, 25-pound bags of beans. I bought things in 50-pound increments unless it's something we don't eat a lot of. And so we have 2 bags of baby limas here, a light red kidney bean, and another bag of great northern beans, so that we could hit that kind of 50-pound mark and have it stocked and stored up. So I'll move them out of the way and then tell you what's underneath them. So underneath is the rest of the kidney beans and the navy beans. We jump over here and we have some soft white wheat. That, again, not one of my top wheat choices as far as grinding for my family. However, is really good for making breads and those sort of things. And it also is a good wheat as far as your animals go. So that will become animal food as well. So the next grain, should be 2 of these in here, is buckwheat. Buckwheat is a good substitute for corn in broiler chickens. That's the meat chickens that we have over here. They're getting ready to go into the coop because it's finally warm enough that the lights and the coop itself would stay warm enough for the chicks. Buckwheat chickens like, it's a no more than 30% of their diet sort of thing, but it's an incredible thing to help keep both the big chickens and the broiler chickens warm. So it's kind of a, in the horse and cattle world that we're part of, we call it kind of a hot feed, like it heats up the animal. And so this is good for chickens in that instance. However, there's not a lot of it required in their summer diet. So I'm gonna have it, put it aside. We're not gonna put it in today's mix because we're coming into that spring and summer. and they should have enough fat on them to keep them warm. And then as time goes on, we'll put the buckwheat in the grain, and it's kind of an ever-changing thing based on season and what the animals need at the time. So we went ahead and grabbed some buckwheat for them. Down here I have two 50-pound bags of oat grout. It 100% is being donated this time to animal feed. We have enough stocked up for our family that if we needed to be digging into that, we have plenty. However, oat grout is such a vital or a big part of the animal's diet. The other crazy thing about oats here in Alaska is oats will actually grow here, because oats grow really early, really quick, and they kind of starve out the weeds and so on. And so if it gets spread out there into, you know, wherever, it's going to produce its own food as the chickens kind of peck through it and it grows. So it's also something that could grow here, and it's a big part of their diet, and it's full of vitamin B for the chickens. So that's kind of what the chickens are going to get from the oat grout. And then right over here is a 25-pound bag of the tri-colored quinoa. Aaron and I are huge quinoa fans. It's really, really good for him. You've seen me buy it lots of times. I kept buying like all the different colors, and then I noticed on Azure, which we kind of like the tri-colored, the multicolored one. I don't know that it tastes any different, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I'm just not that sophisticated, but as far as quinoa goes, I just like the multicolors. I like having all of the different colors in the diet, and I found that it was cheaper this time to do the multicolored than it was to buy the black, the red, the white, so on. All right, two last grains. So I have 2 bags of the whole barley. That is for the chicken food, and let me tell you what it does. The barley is for energy. So there will actually be 10 cups of barley to 5 cups of wheat, 5 cups of millet, which we already have some. And then there are 4 cups of oats, and then 5 cups of peas, and then some additional additives. So the main thing going into this batch of food this time for the season we're in is actually barley. So that will go to the chickens. The other thing are brown lentils. Like I said earlier, when we make split pea, which is a huge staple for our family, we add lentils to them, and then you can make lentils into tacos and all sorts of things. It is good to note that you're not supposed to give chickens raw lentils, but they can have cooked lentils, and then you can also sprout lentils for your chickens as like a great winter time snack. So again, we got something that can become food for the chickens or hogs or other animals, and it can be stored and stocked away for people food as well. So I have a couple other things in the order. Let me tell you what they were. They're just too heavy and hard to move around. So a 5-gallon bucket of the raw apple cider vinegar. We now should be, cross our fingers, should be completely stocked up on apple cider vinegar. And I shouldn't have to get apple cider vinegar again until this time next year, where we would be stocking up again before the gardening season. The other thing is we would like to re-pickle a few things, and we're going to try some white wine vinegar as far as that goes, something with a little less potency or flavor to it for canning. So we only have 1 5-gallon of the white wine vinegar, but we added that into the order. Now, let's make and soak some chicken feed. We're jumping to that now. We're about to mix up this grain for the chickens. I would like to ask you something. If I'm how you've heard about Azure and you've never ordered from Azure before, would you do me a favor? Go to the description box. There will be a link. It'll ask you to enter a code. It's my code, and I get $25 if you spend $100. If you don't spend the $100, don't worry about it. Just stick my code anyway in there. And what Azure does is everybody that is a member gets a code like this. There's no membership fee, there's no minimum of an order. You don't have to order X amount of dollars per year, per quarter, per nothing. But what we all get is one of these codes that we share with our friends and family, and it does truly help our family out. So if you've never ordered from Azure before and you use my code, it does help my family in the long run. So would you please consider doing that? All the information is in the description box. I did want to tell you kind of the totals, and I forgot a couple of things that were put upstairs. I did get some lemon juice for when canning season comes up, and some smaller bags. I grabbed baking powder and cornstarch. I was out or nearly out of both of those, just the 5-pound bags as well. And that is it. My grand total in weight though was 1,076.1 pounds of food. So I had almost half of our drops food. I did want to cover, and we've talked about this before, if you are in Alaska, not only do you pay the standard shipping, our stuff basically gets shipped to Seattle. It's then put on a barge, and then that barge brings it to Alaska. We in Alaska pay the barge company in order to get this stuff. And it's Odyssey and America Fast Freight. So that's who we are actually paying. That isn't Azure. In Alaska, you have an additional shipping charge. So to ship 1,000 pounds, 1,076 pounds, it's at 34 cents a pound. And then the other shipping company has a fee on it as well. So it was plus $148. My total shipping cost to Alaska for 1,000 pounds of food is over $500. So do keep that in mind and understand that that's just kind of a little bit the nature of the beast. Shipping to Alaska is astronomical. So you do have to kind of weigh and balance, and we've done the breakdowns of how much these good grains are through Amazon, where I could get free shipping. It would take weeks to get them. I can't get everything. And second of all, truthfully, I'm just telling you, we've done the math. Azure is cheaper, even with the shipping, than it is to get these things through like Amazon. So before everyone's like, oh, go get this for free. Free isn't always better as far as shipping goes. But that is an additional cost. So if you're an Alaskan, maybe make sure you're dividing that up, because you might be in shock if you didn't know and I didn't tell you. And I would feel horrific if you were like, I didn't know I was paying a shipping cost and I ordered X amount and that was my budget, and now it's here and I can't afford the shipping that is charged additionally. So keep that in mind. It's not through Azure that you pay that additional shipping. All right, those of you interested in homemade chicken food from Azure, like I said before, if you're just buying these grains, you have zero intention of keeping them for your family, for emergencies or anything like that, you can buy animal quality, buy human quality. I don't care how you do it, but this is the recipe. For every 10 cups of barley, there's 5 cups of hard red wheat, 5 cups of millet, 4 cups of oats, 5 cups of split peas. We are waiting on the vitamins, and I'm gonna share with you why and what our chickens are getting right now for the vitamins. And then we are gonna turn this grain mix into a fermented grain with some apple cider vinegar in order to increase the health and the size of the food, believe it or not. So this is gonna end up becoming way more food than what feeding the standard chicken food that you get from the feed store like we did to your chickens. So let's get this mixed up. I just use this like floor scraper and I mix in the grains and mix them all together in the big bucket, and then after they're mixed together, we move on. I wonder why my back hurts all the time. So we have this mixed up. What we are going to do to ferment the grains is we're going to use food grade buckets down here in the basement. Normally I keep the dry grain in the chicken coop. I have a room for it, no big deal, but I have water down here in our basement, and the buckets need to sit for about 3 days. So what we actually have is 3 buckets. Here's the goal. Here's how I'm introducing my chickens with the new soaked fermented grains. Is number 1, we're gonna keep feeding them the dry grain and then offer this to them, and then move less dry grain and more fermented grain along for the next week. It only take a couple of days to get them switched over, and then they will have this. The other thing is the fermenting soaking flavor of it is going to take about 3 days, but you can just soak grains. You could come down here, put enough in the bucket for your chickens overnight, soak them, they swell up, it's more digestible for the chickens, so it's easier for them to digest. They get more vitamins and nutrients from soaked grains. And not only that, you don't have to actually ferment it. So to get my chickens also used to the fermented flavor, the first day is just gonna be 1 day of soaked grains, 2 days of soaked grains, then the full fermented grains. If you'd like to know more about everything we do in our homestead and our chickens, now would be a good time to hit the subscribe button. When you ring the bell, you'll get notifications, and we'll keep you apprised of everything that we're doing around here in the homestead. But let me start soaking some grains. But as far as grains go, what you want is about 1/4 cup per chicken. Currently, we have 17 full-size chickens. We're not gonna do that on the first day because remember, we're still supplementing with the dry food, which is why there's no additional vitamins added to our dry grains, is they're going to be getting that from the dry food, and we don't want to be like kind of doubling them up. However, when we work them off of the dry food, we will add additional vitamins to the grains in order to make sure that the chickens are staying healthy. So this is about 2 cups, which would be, let's see, 2. So 8 chickens, so I only need 2 to 3 cups. So we'll do 3 cups. Now, look at that. In comparison, I can tell you what they eat in dry food. So 2 50-pound bags would go in here, and dry food wise, my chickens every day eat between about 1 cup is what we end up feeding of dry food, and it may last a day or so because they're free fed, but it is, this is not only gonna expand, but it's going to go so much further because we're only feeding 1/4 cup versus a full cup. So I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of some raw organic from Azure apple cider vinegar. What it does is it helps break down some of the coating on the grains, and it does help with the fermentation process. And then cover it with water. And I have some lids over there. I'm just gonna set a lid so that each one of them is getting a little bit of airflow, but nothing can get into it. And tomorrow when we come down here, the first one will probably be ready to go, and then the other ones may need a little additional water, and they'll continue to increase in size. But I can just pop a lid on my grain and have that down here. I have a little scoop in it, and I can just rotate through these buckets every third day. You don't always have to add the vinegar. What you could do is pour a little bit of this water into the next one that you have coming up, and you kind of move that fermentation along. But yeah, this is how we're soaking grains for chickens. Thank you, any of you that have stuck around all the way to the end. I have so much enjoyed spending some time with you today. You are so appreciated around here. I have a ton of chores to go to, and then Wyatt has a game. So I am taking off, but I can hear the chickens screaming out there. I am going to go make sure they have regular food and water for today, and then I will see you in the very next video. Bye until then. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll talk to you guys soon.